Okay, so the next step for us is to start trying to learn more of the positions. Now, I'm showing you examples in A minor pentatonic. You might be doing, another scale or something like that. You might be working with diatonics or something like that, right? Again, don't worry about it if you don't know what it is. But the more you can start learning how to move across the guitar this way, and we're going to talk more about that later in the course, but the more you can start learning to be confident this way, it's going to give you a lot of freedom and a lot more creative opportunities, okay? So what I want to show you here is I'm going to take this first position that we've been talking about. And if we think about it, what I'm doing here is I'm playing the notes A, C, D, E, and G. Well, you don't really need to know that right now, but that is what I'm playing. So I'm playing A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, and then I run out of strings. Well, same notes, and I can move up into another what we call position and play those same notes. So here you'll notice I started on A. Well, when I move up, I'm no longer going to start on A because I'd have to stay here the whole time to do that. So what I'm going to do is move up and start on the second note, which is C. And I'm going to play the exact same notes. C, D, E, G, A. C, D, E, G, A. C, D. And again, I want to learn where A's are in these positions. When I was in the first position, my A's were here. When I was in the second position, I started on C, so my A isn't there anymore on the sixth string. I got to go find it. C, D, E, G, A. There it is. It's on my first finger this time when I'm in this position. Okay, so A, C, D, E, G, A. Okay, so I have A here and A here. So what I like to have people do is you work with learning to visualize the position that you're practicing. You got to learn to see it. If you can see it, you can play it, right? And then the next step is that you start trying to train that position by practicing it over and over and over. Down picking, alternate picking, right? You practice it toward the floor. You practice it toward the ceiling, okay? And then what you do is you learn a second position, another position that connects to that position. And what I love to have players do is a technique that I refer to as meandering. And what you do is you take these positions you start learning how to move around with these positions. So instead of just playing toward the floor and toward the ceiling, you start learning how to kind of move back and forth, okay? Now again, right now we're just exploring. We're just trying to memorize. We'll get more into all the details in a little while here, but we're trying to get comfortable with moving toward the floor and toward the ceiling with each position. And then we're starting to get comfortable with the real world aspect of moving back and forth, okay? Which is what I refer to as meandering. And what I like to do is I'll set a metronome. So if you know what a metronome is, which I don't have one sitting here, but let me do this. Go to, there we go. Okay, I'll pull it up on my phone here. So I have an iPhone and I actually use metronome. Whoops, in the wrong place there. There we go. Okay, the one I'm using is one called Tempo that works really well. Okay, so Tempo, again, I can't really show you what it is, but what I'll do is I'll set it at tempo. So let's say I set it at 110, which means it's going to be 110 clicks per minute. Okay, and it takes a little while to get used to setting the metronome at the appropriate tempo for the particular exercises that you're doing. What I like to do is I like to teach students how to do eighth note exercises. So when your metronome is clicking like this, like it was, you play twice that fast. These are quarter notes. And you're going to play twice that fast, which we're calling eighth notes. Bump, 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 bump. Okay? Now, you might find that 110 beats per minute is way too fast and you need to slow it down a little bit. That's okay. Don't have an ego. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you set it to 60, okay? But try and set it at a speed where you can play 2 for every click. So I set my metronome. You see? Might go to my second position. And again, using that metronome. Now, I have to turn it over. Otherwise, if I say something, Siri will think I'm talking it to it. So if I turn it upside down, I don't have to worry about it. So the trick with these technique exercises with your positions, okay, is that you need to become aware of which ones you're good at and which ones you're having a hard time with. What is it about it that you are having a hard time with? These are the real elements to get you ready to start doing some effective soloing. If you're trying to play that second position, for instance, and you keep finding that a certain finger isn't working very well, or your picking isn't working very well, or the metronome is set too fast, or you can't see it very well, be aware of these things, because those are the problems. Half the battle of becoming a decent guitar player, for lack of a better term, is being aware of what you can do and being aware of what you can't do, and then deciding what you want to do about the elements that you can't do. Because you can keep getting better at certain techniques that you're working on. Obviously, you just need patience and time, and you need to really pay attention to doing an appropriate job with your technique. Don't fake your way through anything. Don't pretend like you're doing anything. It just makes for sloppy guitar players. If you're really trying to develop something, spend some time doing it slow and really, again, intuitively think about what you're doing. Get focused and spend some quality time with that. So if I was showing you this second position again, okay? Now, in the logical world, when I would teach this to people, these are the fingers that I would use. Why? Because I've got 4 fingers that can cover 4 frets at a time. So if I was playing this logically, if I was playing 8 and 10, I should use my middle and my pinky. If I was playing 7 and 10, I should use my first and my pinky. If I was playing 7 and 9, I would use my first and my third. And again, in the logical world, I think that's a wonderful exercise to practice. But as you're going to learn in this guitar course, in the real world, that isn't always the case. Okay? If you've played guitar for a little while, you know how nice it is to use your first and third fingers and how difficult it is to use your middle and your pinky, right? So there are very few times in my playing that I would want to wind up on my middle and my pinky. Maybe it's going to happen, right? But if there's any way I can avoid that in the real world, I'm probably going to avoid it. I'd rather go to my first and third finger because it would be more comfortable for me. So sometimes we practice certain things by route, I call it. We practice it by route. We do it over and over and over to develop that technique, and that's really important. But as we start learning in this guitar soloing course that those rules don't always apply when we're coming from somewhere and when we're going somewhere else, or we're applying a different kind of technique at that point in time, the fingering might change and it might become something completely different. So you need to be aware of that, right? So again, to summarize, if I was playing that second position as an exercise, I might go. And that's perfectly fine. But in the real world, I probably would play it like this. And then when I go down, you'll notice I'm actually using my middle finger right here. So there I'm using my 1 and 2, which is kind of weird. And then I might wind up on my third finger or my pinky, just depends. Again, I've done these a million ways, so it winds up being different all the time because, again, I'm not just practicing the position. I'm practicing learning how to solo. So I hope that doesn't confuse you. I just want to put a bug in your ear to understand that the rules that we learn when we're trying to train our brain to memorize something are wonderful rules. But when we actually start getting out in the real world and start playing, some of those rules are going to change a little bit. Okay, so just sort of be aware of that. So we're going to give you in the PDF, we're going to give you all 5 of those positions in A minor pentatonic. But please understand that if you're playing in a different key or you're working with a different scale, it doesn't have to be that. Okay, I'm just not going to spend 4 hours today talking about different scales. That's a whole other topic of conversation. I want to meet you where you are in your soloing and give you a bunch of cool stuff to start working on that you can apply to the way that you play. All right?